Hello guys, M here, welcome back. Please like and subscribe for more content and blah 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 blah. In today's video, I'll be talking about the best releases of 2021 so far, as of October. This video will be split into two sections, the first being Album of the Year Contenders, and the second being Honourable Mentions, or records which are still great, but not necessarily Album of the Year material. Please bear in mind, this is just my opinion. You may disagree, you probably will actually, with most of these choices, if not at least some. But this is just my opinion, and I really don't care if you get offended, so cool. Album of the Year Contenders for 2021. Here we go. So, first mention, Hypercrisis Absolution by the band Malignament. This band has emerged from the shadows after releasing only one demo previous to this release, and boy, what an album. The first two tracks of the album, Thunder of Awakening and Call to Arms, are almost perfect black metal songs. Stellar riffs and production, drum sound is just great, man. Atmosphere in parts reminds me a lot of the Icelandic band Mistherming, particularly in the second track. Excuse me. Also some real 90s era vibes in parts, and that proves what the band can bring to the table, as the songs span all the way from sinister, simplistic rhythms to melodic, blackened trad sections with influences akin to many a favourite band of mine, at least. So this album's been one of the most memorable releases of the year for me, and deserves its slot for sure as the first album of mention here today. And as debut album goes, it rarely gets much better than this. Second to mention today is the record The Dread March of Solemn Gods by the band Ninkharsag, I think. This band is emerging from England, and they're a homage to Dissection, and they really honour that sound so well. Tracks such as Strigoi Diabolicum, reminiscent of the Light's Bane era in all of its perpetual majesty. Whereas one particular track on this album, Discipline Through Black Sorcery, sounds so much like the Sworn to the Dark Retain era. Make no mistake, as this band definitely still has its own signature sound, and the technical ability combined with really just great songwriting showcases perfectly exactly how black metal should sound. Absolutely killer album, and I cannot wait to see what else they have up their sleeve in the future. These guys really have earned their spot as one of the best bands in the UK black metal scene with this release. Now, slightly biased with this next release, as these guys are my favourite band in the black metal sphere today. This album, Ku Eriklan Ila, I think, by Havukruunu is slightly different to their previous anthology, although not in a bad way. This album, it's closer to the original vision of the band from what they've said. Influences to my ear are much more similar to the Blood, Fire, Death era of Bathory than on their other albums, which draw more inspiration from the Hammerheart and Twilight eras. You can really hear this towards the end section of the fifth track, Mustan Murkin Entin Allah, which in its pace and essence, especially towards the end, sounds a lot similar to A Fine Day to Die. Bathory fans will know exactly what I mean. So really, personally, what I love about this album, aside from it's awesome, is it shows a different side to the sound of the band, and it makes me even more excited for future releases. And once again, the Corthonian lads knock it out the park with a top tier album. Now on to our final album of the year contender, Realm of the Night by Chamber of Unlight. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. This band contains members from black metal titans Horner and others. Released on the mighty Werewolf Records, Realm of the Night is a tribute to the style of old, with tracks such as the opening Crowns of Divinity. It displays black metal in its raw and uncompromising form, reminiscent of many classics. In its essence, it truly brings to the listener everything adored in regards to the first and second waves. Some songs are more melodic and some more primitive and raw, but neither disappoint. Truly an album not to miss for fans of all the classics, Emperor included. One of the most memorable parts of the album for me was the beginning of the track Revelations of Dark Crafts, where alongside the main riffs there's that classic ooh in honor of Tom G. Warrior in all of his glory. So as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be two parts to this video. That was the first, and here goes the latter, which the best releases of the year or honourable mentions, albums that I think they're not quite album of the year material, but they're still bloody good. So here we go. Starting with Sworn to Profound Heresy by Sar Krista. Sar Krista put out a record in 2017 named Summoners of the Serpent's Wrath, which is a favourite of mine. Definitely the band's best work as of yet. However, the release this year is still a great album. Probably the most Finnish sounding German band. In fact, I never realised they were German until I looked into them, as their influences are very, very clear. This release has some great tracks. It's a great 48 minutes of solid black metal, blasting in all of its triumph and glory and style. Production is very cool. The drums sound slightly old school, which I dig a lot. Actually, I have this album's artwork on a flag in my room, which I picked up at Bloodstock Festival this year, which is pretty cool. On to the next honourable mention, A Diabolic Thirst by Spectral Wound. Really, really sick album. Man, solid black metal with soundscapes and riffs reminiscent of bands such as Sargeist, particularly, Umgwa, and a lot more. Vocally, the sound is quite distorted, compressed and harsh, but thanks to the mix, it remains distant enough not to be too overwhelming for the listener. The sound / production kind of blends together quite well. It's recorded with an assumingly intentional lo-fi touch or master. This actually achieves a lot of atmosphere very well, but it doesn't dull the instruments and prevent them from shining through. This is a great balance between the lo-fi and more clear styles of production. Whoever mixed and mastered this album, stylistically speaking, hats off to you. The track Mausoleum Drift has a nasty slow riff which reminds me a lot of early Inquisition. What's that track? Those of the Night, that's the one. Really love the song Frigid and Spellbound, actually. In fact, it's probably my favourite track on the album. Contains some just top tier sections and riffs. Regarding the album, it really blew up in the black metal scene, especially within online boards and the underground, and rightfully so, as it's a solid release. The next mention is Battle Spells by Warmoon Lord, which I have mentioned in a previous video, so go watch that. In short, this album is Warmoon Lord's best work yet, and it's a great tribute to that 90s early era Emperor-ish sound, before symphonic was a dirty word. The tracks are all great. It's a perfect example of why Finland is the GOAT of the black metal scene. Worth a listen for sure, no complaints regarding this record. Another one is Yoth Iria, As the Flame Withers. These guys are a side project of the notorious Greek black metal outfit Rotting Christ. This album is quite melodic, and you can really hear the influence from Rotting Christ members, as in parts it's quite similar. Probably some of the coolest album art I've seen this year too. Next up is Wolf Hex by Wormwich. This one's killer. Diabolical tracks, real solid album all the way through. Loved all the tracks. Some really old school Dark Throne styling parts, which reminds me of like the Frost Worship from Funeral Moon, Blazing the Northern Sky eras. Canadian black metal gets better every year, surprisingly. It's quite a good scene over there. These guys are not the first band to put out some super stuff from that part of the world. I think Spectral Wound, actually, they're Canadian as well, might be wrong. Another one, Devil's Creation by the band Malam. Solid album. Nothing special or groundbreaking, but classic style, can't go wrong with it really. Old school retained vibes, somewhat akin to Lawless Darkness and Cassis Luciferi, I think. Malam, great band. They deserve a lot more spotlight than they have, that's for sure. Sheelan Vaholinen, Teletois Kaski. Yeah, definitely not their best release, in my opinion, but it's not a bad one at that. Hautarutinas. Oh my god. Hautarutinas. That 2015 release, and the 2 albums succeeding that also. Some more of my favourite records, but this album's still pretty damn good. Still, it's a monstrous record. Lot more melodic than their previous releases, a bit less punky. Some may like it, some may not so much. Really just amazing, super punky black metal. One of the best bands that play this style, if not the best actually. Sick band. And finally, Lunar Spells, Where Silence Whispers. This track is the first full length from these guys. Greek band, actually. Good stuff, worth checking out. Reminds me a lot of another Greek band, Stutthof. Solid, sinister atmosphere and malevolent riffage. All the way through to the last tracks on the record. There's also 2 anticipated releases, which I couldn't add to this list as they've not been out yet. But I will cover them in the future. That includes Black Harvest by the English doom overlords Greenlung, and Where Fear and Weapons Meet by Ukrainian Black and Death / doom outfit 1914. Toward the end of the year, I'll make another video probably covering these and with my personal album of the year from, well, both a personal and an objective standpoint. Look forward to offending everyone with that one. Anyway, enough for today. Thanks for tuning in, and if you got this far, please feel free to comment, share your thoughts, tell me if you think I'm rubbish, tell me if you think I'm good, and share it around. Show your friends and all of that stuff. Please follow my band on Instagram at Black Congregation Band. Keep up with the new album and everything related to that, and until next time, stay true.